Welcome to the best Key West one-day itinerary for couples. A couple things to preface this post. So I have gone to Key West a couple of times. One was with my grandparents for like a long weekend, and then I also took my husband for his first visit, and that was kind of like a 48-hour thing, part of like a larger road trip around Florida. So I took the things from both of those trips together into what would be the one like the perfect one-day itinerary if you only have like one full day to do stuff. So I took things from both trips to make this more concise, and so that you definitely get all the highlights and some of the hidden gems as well. One other side note as well is there's an app called GPS My City where you can download this itinerary where it will put it on like a map, like your phone map, and give you the pinpoint directions from place to place that's mentioned in here. So that way you don't have to get lost trying to find your way around Key West. It's a great way to explore the city. And then the last thing before I jump in, this YouTube video here is from this particular day of our road trip. We were leaving Key West and going to the Everglades. So we spent a half day in Key West, half day in the Everglades, and drove all the way up to Tampa. So some of the things in this itinerary will be in this YouTube video, but not everything. The way I recommend starting off really any trip at all is getting like a tour of the city, like first thing. So most places will do like a horse-drawn carriage tour or a golf cart tour. In Key West, they have what is called the conch train, and it takes you on a tour of the city. We do these pretty much everywhere we go because it's a great way to like get your bearings of the city, like figure out your way around, because that will help you out, through the whole rest of your stay. And then you can also find out good information from the guides of like places that are worth going to, places to maybe avoid that could be like overrated. They can answer any questions, they can give you direction to something. So it's a good way to just like start out, get acquainted with the place. The conch tour train is also great because it takes you to a couple of different places that would be pretty far to walk to. So it saves time from having to go like all the way out there and all the way back. So here is what the little train looks like. And they do like a few different stops, and they'll stop for, however long, so that you can get out and explore the area and come back. I believe it's hop on, hop off. So you can always like stop somewhere and get out and come back if you wanted to. Some other things to do in the morning, and you may even want to do this before the conch tour train, is the southernmost point buoy. So this is 90 miles from Cuba. It is the southernmost point of the continental United States, and it's a big tourist attraction for like photos and stuff. The line will get longer throughout the day, so the earlier you can go, the better, as long as like someone's around to take your photo. There's also a place called the Southernmost Bar that's across the street, and they have their own little buoy too of like the southernmost bar in the continental United States or something like that. You could also go there as well. One of the things I enjoyed about, or just enjoy about Key West in general, is the architecture. It is not like just one specific style that you associate with Key West. They have the conch houses, which I would say is like what you picture as Key West, which would be this photo right here. But they also have like Queen Anne style, they have colonial revival, they have Art Deco, a little bit of everything. They have influences of like Caribbean, Cuba, the South. So they have a lot of different stuff which I like. So this would be like the Queen Anne style. This would be more closer to colonial revival than conch, but not the best representation. And then this would be more like the Art Deco style. For lunch, I recommend going to Margaritaville. We generally don't do chain restaurants when we travel, but this one is kind of unique to, if you're going to go to a Margaritaville, you probably should go to the one in Key West. If you've never been to one, or just even if you have. I mean, we've been to Margaritaville now in Vegas because their happy hour is 24/7 in Vegas. And then both locations at the Universal City Walks, so the one in Hollywood and the one in Orlando. I've never eaten at them, but I've gotten key lime pie to go from the other one. So I guess this might actually be the only Margaritaville location that I've sat and eaten like a whole meal. So I obviously recommend getting the cheeseburger in paradise, like going with the themes, getting a margarita, getting key lime pie. They have obviously really great key lime pie. But if you have been to a Margaritaville before, or just don't want to go to a chain or whatever, another recommendation would be Sloppy Joe's Bar. Their claim to fame is that Ernest Hemingway would hang out here. This was kind of his go-to bar. So this is another place that you can hit up if you want something that's more like local and has some like local history to it. Some afternoon activities. I definitely recommend the Ernest Hemingway Home and Museum. They do tours all throughout the day. What's actually the most popular thing about it, I feel like for most people, is Hemingway had this six-toed cat, and so all the descendants from that cat are still there and like free roam around the house. But it's also just cool to like walk around and see kind of just like how he lived, like, you know, the man behind the persona type of thing. Another really popular tour is the Harry Truman Little White House. So this was Harry Truman's winter home. I went to this one with my grandparents the first time I had visited, so I couldn't find any pictures of it. But imagine if they had built the White House in Key West instead of DC, how you would have the more Key West architecture styles, but still being very like colonial and presidential vibes as well. It's a really cool place to walk around and see. It's not little compared to the White House, I guess, but it is not little. For dinner, I recommend going to the Conch Republic Seafood Company. I hear both trips that I went down to Key West, they're known for their famous conch chowder, which is more like a chili type of thing. Like, it's not like clam chowder, and here's kind of what it looks like. I actually did not care for it at all. I had JP eat the whole thing, and he didn't necessarily love it either. I don't know if it was a fluke thing or if I just did not like conch chowder in general, because there are a lot of like seafood things that I don't care for. Like, I don't like scallops, I don't like slimy things, so that could have been it. I don't really know, but I did not care for it. However, they do have other things that are great. So like coconut shrimp, they have like all the different kinds of shrimp. I had the coconut shrimp. JP, this was just like a breaded shrimp, but I feel like it might have had like a spice to it or something, because usually if we're not sharing, he'll get stuff that I don't like, and I don't like spicy stuff. But the main thing that I loved was this pineapple upside down rum cake. And then they also had really good mojitos, which is great because Key West and Florida in general stays warm in the evening and stays humid. So it feels nice and refreshing like once the sun has gone. So it's cooled off slightly, but it's still a little toasty. So it's a good refreshing drink like in the evening after the sun has set. And then for the evening, I recommend just hanging out around Mallory Square. It's kind of the center of Key West. It's where like the cruise ports are and things like that. So it's a lot of people are, you know, coming in and out of there. This is what the sunset kind of looks like. And there's always all these different like sailboats out there. That's where all the restaurants are. There's street entertainment. You can just walk around. So there's a little bit of everything to just kind of hang out. And then for the best places to stay, these are both going to be two kind of wildly different things. So if you just want like the best location and like money is no object, the Hyatt Centric Key West Resort and Spa is right there on Mallory Square. Because Key West is small-ish and limited-ish in how many accommodations can be built there, hotels tend to be pricier than other places. So it's already pricier to begin with, but then this is like the best location, the, you know, highest level resort kind of thing. So you're getting the best of everything if you go here. If you are a little bit more budget conscious than that, but can still like, but you don't need to like be in a motel or like, oh, what are those words when people go backpacking? Hostels. You know, you don't want to do like hostels or motels, but you still want to kind of keep your typical level hotel. Where we stayed is the DoubleTree Grand Key, which is up near the airport. So it's like 10 or 15 minutes from the center of town. So you will either have to like drive into town or take an Uber into town. There is a shuttle that will take you back and forth throughout the day, but it was at very specific times. It's not necessarily always exactly when you would want to go. So it's there if you need it. I wouldn't necessarily rely on it 100%, but it's a great way to, you know, still get to be in Key West and nearby without having to splurge quite as much. And again, we tend to stick with one brand as much as possible so that you can get the extra perks and rewards and free nights and things. So for us, that's Hilton. So that's why we picked the DoubleTree, and this was the most affordable of those options to actually be in Key West for the night. Some frequently asked questions about visiting Key West. So is it worth a day trip? Because if you're coming from like Miami or something, you're gonna have to drive like 4 hours just to get there and back, which is a lot of driving just for one day. So If you're coming all the way from Miami, there's not a lot that you can do in one day, but say you're coming in on a cruise ship and they're docking there for a day, then, you know, one day is perfect. You don't necessarily need to be there longer than that. Enjoy all the highlights and get to like really experience Key West. Here's another Mallory Square sunset photo. Can you drive to Key West for one day? I kind of mentioned that. So from Miami, you know, 3.5, 4 hours. I wouldn't go that far just for a single day without like staying overnight, which is what we did on our road trip. Is we drove down like midday afternoon, spent late afternoon, evening, stayed the night at the DoubleTree, and then the next day spent most of the day before driving back up. So I would do something like that. Is it a day trip from Miami? This kind of leads into everything that I've just said. For us, I feel like I wouldn't go more than maybe 2.5 hours for a single day, like, and not even stay the night. It's a little far for that, but like if it's once in a lifetime, you find yourself in Miami with the time and there's no other opportunity you would ever go, then sure. But I wouldn't necessarily intentionally plan to visit Key West in that way. The drive is really great though. It's one of the most scenic drives in the world. I don't have any like photos really of the drive. I think there were more so videos, but you're basically on this bridge from key to key the whole way. And especially when it's like a sunny day, it is like crystal clear, blue, bright water. So the drive itself is kind of part of the experience as well. And then some more places to visit around Florida. So I grew up visiting Florida every summer my whole life. I would stay like at least a month usually. We would do a week or two at Disney. I'd do a week or two with my grandparents, and they've lived kind of all over Florida. I went to college in Florida. I did part of grad school in Florida. My family lives there now, so I have been kind of anywhere and everywhere in Florida over the years. So these are kind of some of my favorite places that I recommend. First up is St. Augustine. It's the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in the US. So it's kind of like the oldest city. Super historic, really fun, really easy to do for just like a one-day visit. The Kennedy Space Center over by like Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, so like Central Florida coast is really cool to go to at least once. You can definitely spend a whole day there. The Florida Treasure Coast is a little bit south of that, also kind of like Central Florida coast. Quieter, less visited, but really great restaurant. It's definitely more of like a locals kind of area. And then an A1A road trip itinerary is really fun to do. This was it was half of this road trip that we had done. So it goes from like the very top of Florida all the way down to Miami, and really you could just continue down to Key West. But our road trip, we continued up the Gulf side as well. But specifically with this itinerary, it's like actually driving A1A, like not driving on 95 and like stopping at different places, like literally driving A1A from town to town to town, stopping at all the lights, that kind of thing. I recommend probably like 5-ish days if you want to like stop and do things, or you could drive it in a single day if you wanted, if you weren't like getting out to explore anywhere. Once you're down in Miami, Biscayne National Park is right outside of it. The whole park is basically water with some keys kind of sprinkled off the coast. And the way you see it is these chartered tours where they will take like sailboats or motorboats out, and you can get all kinds of different activities. So ours, we did snorkeling, stand-up paddleboarding, a picnic lunch here on the key, but you can do like just one activity or whatever. Like we did like a full day one to just kind of see the most of the park. There's also the Everglades National Park. For this one, the best way to see it is an airboat ride. So those are two of the national parks that are in Florida. The third one is actually off the coast of Key West. We weren't able to get transportation there on our visit, but you would also need like a whole extra day to your trip to do that. So if you were doing a 2-day Key West itinerary, I would plan one for what I just covered, and then the other day to do the national park, because you'll have to take like a seaplane or a ferry out there, so it's a little bit involved. So if you were only going to Key West for one day, I wouldn't try to squeeze in the national park as well. I would definitely do a separate day for that. And then to kind of tie that all together, so I've kind of talked about this, the 1-week Florida road trip, this is what JP and I did. He had really never been to any of these places in Florida. He had been to Disney World once before, and I think he had maybe been to like Tampa or the Cocoa Beach area once for like a business thing, but had never seen anything else. One time when we were going to Orlando visiting my family, we took 1 week and we did this exact road trip, which is what all those other ideas listed above are all connected to for the most part. So check that out for more ideas on different places that you can go around Florida. And then the last thing that I have is I do have this free guide for free things to do in Florida. So this is really great for like if you want to find free things to do so that you can splurge on other things, or free things to do so that you can actually afford to go on the trip. You can kind of use it for both angles. We've definitely done trips, where both of those angles apply. But that is everything I have for the perfect Key West one-day itinerary for couples.